my sister suddenly disappeared, leaving her two newborn children in my care, abandoning me to raise them alone. I sacrificed everything, my fiancé, my career fib, my youth, just to ensure that my two nephews, who weren't even my own children, had a decent home. Then one evening, after 9 years of absence without a single word, my sister returned, and she demanded I hand over the children. Our parents immediately took her side. They called me selfish for not giving in. But selfish was the last thing I'd ever been. And that very night I told myself, if they wanted a fight, I'd give them a fight. My name is Aiden Lane. I was born and raised in a comfortably middle-class family in the suburbs of a small city where everything seemed peaceful on the surface, but beneath it were cracks only those living there could see. My father, Harold Lane, was a construction engineer working for a large company, always coming home late with the smell of concrete and sweat clinging to his clothes. He was a quiet man, but when he spoke, his words carried the weight of stone. My mother, Diane Lane, was a teacher at the local elementary school, a gentle but anxious woman who always tried to keep our home looking as perfect as a catalog. And then there was my sister, Olivia Lane, 6 years younger than me, the fragile treasure our family cherished from the day she was born. I vividly remember the day Olivia came into the world. I was only 6, playing with plastic balls in the backyard when my father rushed into the house, pale-faced, and said, "Son, come with me to the hospital. Your mother's about to give birth." The baby in my mother's womb was just over 8 months along, and suddenly everything turned chaotic. My mother gave birth to Olivia prematurely. She weighed less than 2 kilos and spent nearly a month in an incubator. The doctors said she was frail, her lungs underdeveloped, and she might face health issues for life. From that moment, our family's life revolved around Olivia like a planet orbiting the sun. I wasn't jealous, at least not at first. As her older brother, I felt proud to protect my little sister. I remember the first nights after Olivia came home, sitting by her crib, watching her sleep with her faint, wheezy breaths. "Aiden, be gentle," my mother would always remind me. "Your sister is very weak." And my father would say, "You're the big brother, you have to set an example." Those words became the motto of my life. Give in to your sister. She's weak, you have to understand. You're older, be patient. Those phrases repeated endlessly, like the background music of my childhood. As Olivia grew, her health improved, but the pampering never stopped. When she cried, the whole family rushed to her side. Whatever toy she wanted, our parents bought it immediately. I was different. I had to clean my room, do my homework, and manage everything on my own. Not because my parents hated me, but because I was the older brother, expected to be independent so I could look after my sister, as they often said. I remember when I turned 8, I dreamed of a new bicycle. My parents promised to get it, but then Olivia caught a fever and the savings went to hospital bills. I didn't cry. I just quietly played with my rickety old bike. "Next year, okay, son?" my mother said, ruffling my hair. But the next year, Olivia wanted an expensive doll, and so... Over time, I grew used to shouldering responsibility. In middle school, I started doing household chores, cooking simple meals, doing laundry, even taking Olivia to school when my parents were busy. She was 6 then, adorable with her golden hair and big blue eyes, but already showing signs of selfishness. "Aiden, I want that candy." If I didn't give in, she'd wail, and my parents would scold me. "Why can't you share with your sister? She's still young." I gritted my teeth and accepted it, thinking it was normal. But deep down, I felt a vague resentment, like a seed planted but not yet sprouted. Olivia grew up in that cocoon of indulgence, and it turned her into a reckless, irresponsible young woman. In high school, she started skipping classes, hanging out with friends, and secretly smoking. I remember coming home late one night to find Olivia in the living room reeking faintly of alcohol. She was only 15. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. Olivia smirked. "What's your problem?" "I'm just having fun. Don't tell Mom and Dad, okay?" I didn't tell because I didn't want to upset them. Instead, I tried to reason with her, but she just shook her head. "You're always so serious. I've been weak since I was born. I need to have fun. That excuse, she never tired of using it. Meanwhile, I worked hard to build a life. I graduated college with an accounting degree and landed a job at a small company with a decent salary. I dreamed of a life of my own, getting married, having kids, building a home. I met Lauren, a colleague with a warm smile and a gentle demeanor. We fell in love, and I thought finally I had my own happiness, but my family remained a burden. My parents were getting older, their health declining, and Olivia was becoming more aimless. She dropped out of college halfway through, took a part-time job at a cafe, but mostly spent her time partying with her boyfriend. Then one day, as I was preparing dinner with Lauren, the phone rang incessantly. It was my mother. Her voice panicked through the speaker. "Aiden, come home now. Something's happened to Olivia." My heart skipped a beat as if someone had squeezed it tight. "What's wrong with her, Mom?" I asked, my hands trembling. "Just come, hurry," she ordered, then hung up. I looked at Lauren, who grabbed my hand, her eyes full of worry. "Calm down, love. Everything will be okay." I rushed to the car, driving through dark streets, my heart heavy as lead. I didn't know what awaited me, but a bad feeling clung to me like a storm about to break. When I arrived at my parents' house, I saw Olivia curled up on the sofa, her face pale, eyes red and swollen, her disheveled hair covering half her face. My father stood in the corner of the room, hands clenched, his face red with barely contained anger. My mother was sobbing, her shoulders shaking. The atmosphere was oppressive, as if the entire room was about to collapse. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice faltering, trying to stay calm despite my pounding heart. I stepped toward Olivia, wanting to touch her shoulder, but she flinched as if afraid of being judged. Olivia looked up, her eyes brimming with tears, her voice trembling. "Aiden, I'm pregnant." I froze as if someone had punched me in the chest. "What?" I turned to my parents, my voice nearly a shout. "How did this happen? With who?" My father slammed the table, the sound startling me. "That bastard Jake, he's gone." I looked at Olivia, taking a deep breath to keep from losing control. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice low, dreading the answer. She bowed her head, mumbling, "A few weeks. But the baby's already 4 months along." 4 months? I turned to my mother, almost pleading. "What did the doctor say?" She sobbed. "The doctor said it's too late for a safe abortion. It could endanger her life." I stood there, my mind reeling. Olivia, the little sister I'd cared for since she was a baby, was now sitting in front of me, pregnant out of wedlock with some deadbeat's child. I wanted to scream, to ask why she let things get this far, why she was so reckless, but seeing her trembling, I only felt heartache. She was still the frail little sister in my eyes, even if her impulsive nature had led her to this mistake. That night, we sat around the dining table, the dim light casting shadows on tense faces. No one ate, though my mother had set out a few dishes, mashed potatoes and cold cuts now sitting untouched. My father spoke first, his voice low and commanding. "Our family has to stick together. Olivia can't be a mother on her own." He paused, looking straight at me, his gaze cold and piercing. "Aiden, you're the older brother. You have to help her." I was stunned, feeling as if I'd been stabbed in the back. "Help how?" I asked, my voice shaking, trying to stay calm despite the anger boiling inside me. "I just started working. I have Lauren. I have my own future." My mother cried, grabbing my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Aiden, don't you see how much your sister is suffering? She's been weak since birth, born premature, and now she's pregnant. You have to share this burden with her." My father continued, his tone unyielding, as if the matter was already decided. "Olivia needs to give birth safely. After that, she can't raise a child alone. Aiden, you have to provide financial support." I felt like I was freezing, as if the room was shrinking, suffocating me. "Financial support? Where am I supposed to get the money? I'm saving for my wedding, for—" Before I could finish, my father slammed the table again, the sound making me jump. "What are you saying? Your sister is weak. How can she raise a child alone? We're getting old. You're the older brother with a stable job. You have to support her. That's an order." His words cut like a sharp knife, slicing deep into my heart. I'd heard them so many times since Olivia was born, from the days I had to give up my toys, my time, even my dreams. It was like a curse binding me to the role of the sacrificer. I looked at my mother, hoping she'd say something different, but she only sobbed. "Aiden, you're the pillar of this family. If you don't help, Olivia might do something desperate. She won't be able to handle it." I looked at Olivia, her shoulders shaking as she cried, whispering, "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do." In that moment, I saw my little sister again, lying in the incubator in the hospital. So fragile, I was afraid even touching her would hurt her. I knew I didn't want Olivia to have an abortion, didn't want to lose that innocent life. But to take on the entire financial responsibility? It felt like I was being pushed into a bottomless pit, and no one in that room could see that I was sinking. I looked at Olivia, her red eyes filled with desperation, as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff. I was afraid that if I refused, she'd do something reckless, something that could harm herself or the baby. "All right," I said, my voice breaking as if I were signing my own sentence. "I'll help. I'll cover the costs for her to give birth safely and help with the expenses for the baby afterward. But Olivia, you have to try, okay?" She nodded, but her eyes were empty, as if she didn't truly grasp the weight of what was coming. I knew she wasn't sincere, but I no longer had the strength to argue. The months that followed were a blur of relentless work. I threw myself into my job like a machine. Every day I stayed late, my eyes glued to the computer screen, numbers dancing before me like a constant reminder of the burden weighing on my shoulders. I cut back on all personal expenses, skipping dinners out with Lauren, declining coffee outings with friends. My salary was no longer my own. I bought formula, diapers, baby clothes, and took Olivia to her prenatal checkups. Each time I saw her in the clinic, her belly growing larger, I felt a mix of joy and dread. Joy because the babies, twins as the doctor revealed, were developing healthily. Dread because the financial burden had doubled and I had no idea how I'd manage. Olivia, however, didn't change. She still went out, hung out with friends as if her pregnancy was just a temporary inconvenience. "I'm exhausted from being pregnant," she'd say when I asked about preparing for motherhood. "You take care of everything. I don't know what to do." I was furious, wanting to yell that she was the mother, that she had to take responsibility, but I bit my tongue. I remembered the desperate look in her eyes during that family meeting, and I feared pushing her too hard would lead to another reckless decision. "Fine," I said, my voice dry, "but you have to learn how to care for your kids." Olivia shrugged and turned away, leaving me with that familiar feeling of helplessness. The night before Olivia gave birth, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my small apartment, staring at a photo of Lauren and me in the park where I'd proposed. Her smile in the picture felt distant, like it belonged to another life. I wondered, was I losing her? Lauren was still by my side, but I could feel the growing distance. She spoke less, her eyes often heavy when I talked about Olivia. "You're doing too much," she said once, her voice tinged with sadness. "I know, but Olivia's my sister. I can't abandon her," I replied, trying to justify it, though I wasn't even sure I was doing the right thing. The phone rang in the middle of the night. It was my mother, her voice urgent. "Aiden, get to the hospital now. Olivia's in labor." I raced to the hospital, my heart pounding. The sterile white hallways, the sharp smell of disinfectant, the hurried footsteps, it all felt like a nightmare. After 10 agonizing hours of waiting, the doctor came out smiling. "Congratulations, 2 healthy boys." I trembled, tears welling up. My parents named the babies Matthew and Joshua. Seeing the tiny red-faced boys crying as the doctor held them up, my heart raced with emotion. A moment later, Olivia was wheeled out from recovery. I held her hand, whispering, "You did great." She gave a weak smile, but her eyes didn't linger on her babies. I didn't notice that detail at the time, but it was the first sign. My parents were overjoyed, but their faces were etched with worry. Two little ones like this. How will Olivia manage? My mother muttered, her eyes anxious. I'll handle the finances, I reassured them. It'll be okay. In the first few weeks, I kept my promise, buying formula, diapers, and everything the babies needed. Olivia stayed at our parents' house, but she didn't care for her children. I don't know how to be a mom, she said, her tone irritable. I was angry. Olivia, you're their mother, you have to learn. But she just shrugged as if it wasn't her responsibility. 6 months later, the real shock hit. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, the phone rang. It was my mother, her voice frantic. Aiden, Olivia's gone. I was stunned as if I'd been slapped. Gone where? I shouted. My mother sobbed over the phone. She left a note saying she can't be a mother. She's run off with a new boyfriend. I raced to my parents' house, my heart pounding. Matthew and Joshua were in their cribs crying inconsolably, their faces red. Olivia's note lay on the table, her handwriting scrawled. Dad, Mom, Aiden, I can't do this. Please take care of the kids. I'm sorry. I trembled with rage and pain. How dare she? I muttered, crumpling the note in my fist. My parents sat there, their faces weary. Aiden, we're too old to handle 2 babies, my father said, his voice low. You raised them, I shouted. Why me? They're Olivia's kids. She has to take responsibility. My father snapped. Olivia's gone. She was overwhelmed raising 2 kids, don't you understand? My mother cried, Aiden, you're the pillar of this family. If you don't raise them, who will? I looked at Matthew and Joshua crying in their cribs and my heart broke. I wanted to refuse to run away, but seeing their innocent eyes, I couldn't. All right, I said, my voice choked. I'll raise them. I brought Matthew and Joshua to my small apartment. Lauren stood at the door looking at the 2 cribs, her eyes brimming with tears. Aiden, I'm not sure I can do this, she said, her voice trembling. I hugged her, whispering, It's only temporary, I promise. But deep down, I knew nothing was temporary. The burden had just begun and I was about to lose everything. My small apartment was now cramped with 2 cribs, the cries of Matthew Joshua echoing through the night. I juggled work and caring for the babies, running back and forth between the office and home like a machine. During the day, I sat in front of the computer, my eyes burning from lack of sleep, trying to finish my work to avoid my boss's reprimands. At night, I mixed formula, changed diapers, and soothed the babies to sleep, sometimes catching only a few hours of rest before dawn. Lauren tried to help, but I could see her growing exhausted, the spark in her eyes gradually fading. Are you okay? Lauren asked one evening as I sat on the floor holding a fussy Joshua. I forced a smile. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I felt like I was losing myself, and worse, I could sense Lauren drifting away. She stayed by my side, still made me coffee every morning, but our conversations grew shorter, our hugs rarer. Aiden, you can't do everything alone, she said once, her voice laced with concern. I know, but I have to, I replied, trying to hide my desperation. Lauren endured it for a few months. She helped me care for the babies, but I could see her exhaustion, not just from the work, but from feeling pushed out of my life. One evening, after Matthew and Joshua had finally fallen asleep, Lauren sat across from me, her eyes serious. Aiden, we need to talk, she said, her voice low but resolute. My heart sank. I knew this moment was coming, but I didn't want to face it. I love you, she began, her eyes red. But I can't keep doing this. You're living for those 2 kids, for your family, but what about me? What about us? I wanted to say something, to promise everything would be okay, but my throat tightened. Lauren, I don't have a choice, I said, my voice breaking. They're my nephews. I can't abandon them. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. But I don't want to live raising someone else's kids. I want a family of our own, Aiden. I can't wait forever. I sat there, frozen, as if the world was crumbling around me. Lauren stood, grabbing her suitcase from the corner of the room. I'm leaving, she said, her voice trembling. I need time to think. I wanted to hold her back, to beg her to stay, but I just sat there watching her pack, each folded shirt like a knife cutting into my heart. When the door closed, I heard her sobs echoing from the hallway, and I knew I'd lost her. The days that followed were a blur. I still cared for Matthew and Joshua, still went to work, but everything felt meaningless. I looked around the apartment, once filled with Lauren's and my laughter, now echoing only with the baby's cries and my loneliness. I missed her smile, the evenings we'd sprawl on the couch dreaming of a small bakery, a house with a garden full of flowers. All those dreams had vanished, leaving me with 2 children who weren't mine and a broken heart. My parents visited occasionally, but they didn't help much. "You're doing so well, Aiden," my mother said, her voice full of pride, but I only felt bitterness. They didn't ask about Lauren, didn't ask how I was feeling. Olivia was completely gone. No calls, no messages. I began to realize that in this family I wasn't just the older brother. I was the one solely responsible for my sister's mistakes. Every night as Matthew and Joshua slept, I sat by their cribs looking at their tiny faces. They were the only light in my darkness. But even that light couldn't erase the loneliness gnawing at me. I had lost Lauren, lost my dream of a family of my own, and perhaps lost myself. My small apartment was no longer the place where I once dreamed of a happy future. It had become a battlefield, where I was both the warrior and the victim. 2 cribs crowded the corner of the living room, and the sudden cries of Matthew and Joshua pulled me from fitful sleep. I learned to mix formula at midnight, change diapers in the dim glow of a lamp, and soothe the babies with lullabies I made up on the spot. "Sleep now, my little angels," I whispered, my voice hoarse with exhaustion, but my heart warmed as I watched them drift into slumber. By day I went to work, my eyes burning from lack of sleep. The already dry accounting job became even more grueling. I sat in front of the screen, numbers mocking me as they danced, but I couldn't afford to slack off. Every penny of my salary now went to formula, diapers, and medicine for the boys. I no longer had time for daydreams, for leisurely evenings with friends, or for quiet moments with Lauren, who had left me a few weeks ago. My life had shrunk to a repetitive cycle. Work, care for the kids, sleep, repeat. I struggled to balance life and adapt to the crushing pressure. Matthew and Joshua cried incessantly, sometimes all night. I ran back and forth between their cribs, soothing one while the other wailed, calming the other only for the first to wake again. One night I collapsed on the floor, holding Joshua, tears streaming down my face from sheer exhaustion. "I can do this," I told myself, but the voice was frail, buried under the weight of my burden. I sought help from a local organization for single parents, and they provided some formula, diapers, and used clothes. But for the most part, I was on my own. My parents visited occasionally, but their presence only deepened my bitterness. "You're doing so well," my mother said, stroking Matthew's hair. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted them to ask how I was feeling, to see how exhausted I was. Olivia remained completely absent, no calls, no messages. I tried not to think about her, but every time I looked at Matthew and Joshua, I saw her face, and the anger inside me flared up again. My work began to suffer. I was late a few times because I had to take the boys to the doctor or because I hadn't slept the night before. My boss called me into his office, his tone stern. "Aiden, you need to focus. The company doesn't pay you to half-ass your work." I bowed my head, apologized, but inside I was seething. I wanted to scream that I didn't choose this life, that I was doing everything for 2 kids who weren't even mine. But I stayed silent, returned to my desk, and kept grinding. My meals became rushed bites. A slice of bread with peanut butter, a cold cup of coffee, that was my dinner. One day I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. Dark circles under my eyes, disheveled hair, a gaunt face. I was only 28, but I looked a decade older. "Who am I?" I asked myself, but there was no answer. Gradually, I learned to adapt. I found a daytime babysitter, Mrs. Mary, an older woman who lived nearby. She was kind, charging only a small fee, and loved Matthew and Joshua like her own grandchildren. "You're a wonderful father," she said once, smiling. I shook my head. "I'm not their father." But she just smiled. "You raise them, you love them, that makes you their father." Her words choked me up but also gave me strength. The moments with Matthew and Joshua were the faint glimmers of light in my darkness. I remember the first time Matthew smiled, a wide, toothless grin when I made a silly face. Joshua loved grabbing my hand, his tiny fingers gripping mine as if he never wanted to let go. In those moments, I forgot my exhaustion, the pain of losing Lauren, the unfairness of my family. But when night fell, the loneliness returned, gnawing at me bit by bit. 9 years passed in the blink of an eye, yet they felt like a lifetime. Matthew and Joshua were now 9 years old, two bright, well-behaved boys who excelled in school. Watching them, my heart swelled with pride. Matthew loved to draw, his colorful sketches adorning the walls of our apartment. Joshua was obsessed with reading, especially adventure stories. "Uncle Aiden, tell me a pirate story," he'd beg, his eyes sparkling. I stopped correcting him that I wasn't their uncle, just smiled and told the story, even if my voice was hoarse from exhaustion. My life now revolved around the boys. I moved to a larger apartment thanks to careful savings and a small loan. It was still modest, but it had enough space for Matthew and Joshua to have their own rooms. I missed out on several promotions because I couldn't work overtime or travel for business. "Aiden, you have potential," my boss once said, "but you need to commit more." I just nodded, offering no explanation. How could I explain that I had no time for myself, that every moment was devoted to the boys? I didn't date, didn't go out, didn't have a life of my own. Once a colleague tried to set me up with a woman. "She's great, Aiden. You should give it a chance." I gave an awkward smile and declined. How could I love someone when Lauren's shadow still lingered in my heart, and when my entire world was Matthew and Joshua? I didn't regret it, but sometimes in the long nights I wondered what I'd lost. My parents still visited, though less frequently. "You're raising them so well," my mother said, but I noticed she seemed uneasy staying too long. My father was quieter, giving only a nod, as if he knew I was sacrificing too much but didn't want to acknowledge it. Olivia remained a ghost, as if she'd never existed. Once Matthew asked, "Where's our mom, Uncle Aiden?" I choked, managing only, "Your mom went far away. But I'm here with you both." That question cut like a knife, reminding me that no matter how hard I tried, I could never replace their mother. Watching Matthew and Joshua grow brought me fulfillment. They were healthy, smart, and loved me. I cherished the afternoons taking them to the park, their laughter echoing as I pushed them on the swings. I remembered the nights they had fevers when I stayed up holding them, praying they'd recover. I'd done everything for them, and despite the exhaustion, I knew I'd done the right thing. But then one evening, everything changed. I was reading to Joshua in the living room, the boy curled up on the sofa with his favorite adventure book, when the doorbell rang. Matthew, who was drawing at the dining table, looked up and asked, "Who's that, Uncle Aiden?" I shrugged, standing up thinking it might be Mrs. Mary stopping by to pick something up. But when I opened the door, I froze. Olivia stood there after 9 years of absence. Her hair was dyed golden blonde, her lips painted bright red, wearing a tight leather jacket and high-heeled boots. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a party, not out of the painful past she'd left behind. "Aiden," she said casually, as if she'd only left yesterday. "I want to see the kids." My heart stopped as if someone had thrown cold water in my face. I stood blocking the doorway, my hand gripping the knob tightly. "Olivia," I said through gritted teeth, trying to stay calm. "What are you doing here?" She shrugged, flashing an awkward smile. "I miss them. I'm their mother, aren't I?" I wanted to scream, to ask where she'd been for 9 years, but Matthew and Joshua appeared behind me. "Uncle Aiden, who's that?" Joshua asked innocently. Olivia peered over my shoulder, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, they've grown so much." She stepped forward, but I raised a hand to stop her. "Wait," I said, my voice trembling with anger. You can't just show up and demand to see them. Olivia frowned, her tone sharpening. They're my kids, Aiden. You have no right to stop me. I felt the blood rush to my head. Olivia, you abandoned them when they were 4 months old. Now you come back after 9 years and expect to see them? You have no right. Matthew grabbed my hand, his voice worried. Uncle Aiden, why are you mad? I took a deep breath, trying to suppress my anger so as not to scare the boys. It's okay, kids. Go to your room. I need to talk to this person for a bit. I led Olivia out into the hallway, closing the door behind us. Under the dim yellow light, I saw her face more clearly. Still beautiful, but there was something weary about her, as if her carefree lifestyle had drained her vitality. What do you want, Olivia? I asked coldly. She crossed her arms, looking at me with defiance. I want to take the kids back. They're my children, and I'm ready to be a mother. I let out a bitter laugh, not out of amusement. Ready? After 9 years? Do you know what they like to eat? What they're afraid of? What do you know about them besides the fact that you abandoned them? Olivia stepped back as if I'd slapped her. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. I was young, I was scared. But I'm okay now. I can take care of them. I shook my head, feeling like I was talking to a stranger. Okay? You disappeared without a word, leaving me with 2 babies and a sorry note. You think that's enough? Olivia bit her lip, her eyes welling up, but I wasn't sure if the tears were real or just an act. I know I was wrong, she said, but I have a right to be their mother. You can't keep them forever. I wanted to yell in her face, to tell her about the sleepless nights, the days I collapsed from exhaustion, the dreams I gave up to raise her children. But I only said, you don't deserve them. Leave, Olivia. She glared at me. You'll regret saying that, Aiden. They're my kids, and I'll take them back. Then she turned, her high heels clicking down the hallway, leaving me with a storm of emotions raging inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat watching Matthew and Joshua, sleeping soundly, unaware that their biological mother had reappeared. I wondered what I'd done wrong to end up here. I'd sacrificed everything, Lauren, my career, my youth, just to keep these boys safe. And now, Olivia wanted to take them away. The next day, my parents called me to their house. I knew something bad was coming. When I walked in, I saw Olivia sitting there, eyes red, next to my mother. My father looked at me, his voice low. Aiden, we need to talk. I sat down, my heart heavy as stone. Olivia spoke first, her voice full of grievance. I want the kids back with me. I'm their mother and I'm ready. I clenched my fists, trying not to shout. Ready? Do you know what grade they're in, what they like? Do you know anything about them? My mother interrupted, her voice trembling. Aiden, don't be so harsh. Olivia is their mother. She has rights. I turned to her, feeling betrayed. Rights? Do you remember how she abandoned them? Do you remember what I had to give up to raise them? My father slammed the table. Enough, Aiden. You're being selfish. You have to give in to your sister. Olivia knows she was wrong and now she wants to make it right. I let out a bitter laugh. Make it right? Selfish? Do you two have any idea what I've lost over the past 9 years? The air in the room was suffocatingly heavy. Olivia cried, but I no longer trusted her tears. I don't want to argue, she said, but I won't give up. They're my kids. I looked at my parents, hoping they'd take my side, but their eyes were full of bias. Aiden, you should give Olivia a chance, my mother pleaded. She's grown up now. I stood up, unable to take it anymore. I won't let her take them. Never. The family meeting ended in tension. I left, my heart filled with anger and pain. When I returned to the apartment, Matthew and Joshua were playing, oblivious to the storm brewing. I hugged them, whispering, I won't let anyone take you away. But deep down, I knew Olivia wouldn't give up easily. She had our parents behind her, and I was alone. In the days that followed, I lived in constant anxiety. Olivia started showing up more often, bringing gifts for Matthew and Joshua. She told them stories about her adventures, about the fun life she could give them. The boys grew curious about their mother, and each of their questions, will she come back? Is she a good person? Felt like salt in my wounds. I tried to stay calm, but I knew I couldn't fight my entire family alone. And then, one Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang while I was helping Matthew and Joshua with their homework. I was certain it was Olivia, but when I opened the door, I froze. Not only was Olivia there, but standing beside her were my parents and a stranger in a black suit holding a briefcase. My father looked at me, his gaze stern. "Aiden, we need to talk." My mother stood nearby, her face full of worry, while Olivia crossed her arms, her eyes cold. The man stepped forward, handing me a business card. "I'm Christopher Blake, attorney for Ms. Olivia Lane. We're here to discuss custody of the two children, Matthew and Joshua Lane." My heart stopped. "Attorney?" I repeated, my voice trembling. I looked at my parents, hoping this was a joke, but their eyes told me everything. They were on Olivia's side. "Come in," I said, my voice dry, leading them to the living room. Matthew and Joshua looked up from their study table, curious but anxious. "Uncle Aiden, what's going on?" Joshua asked in a small voice. I forced a smile. "It's okay, kids. Go play in your room for a bit." The boys obediently left, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. We sat around the dining table, the air as heavy as it was 9 years ago when Olivia announced her pregnancy. Mr. Blake opened his briefcase, pulling out a stack of papers. "Mr. Lane, my client is requesting custody of the children. As their biological mother, she has legal rights. We hope to resolve this amicably, but if necessary, we will take this to court." I clenched my fists, feeling the blood rush to my head. "Legal rights?" I said through gritted teeth. "She abandoned them when they were 6 months old. I've raised them for 9 years. Where was she?" Olivia jumped in, her voice sharp. "You don't understand. I was young, I was scared, but I'm ready to be a mother now." I let out a bitter laugh. "Ready? What do you know about them? Do you know Matthew's afraid of the dark? That Joshua loves adventure books? What do you know besides the fact that you walked away and left a note?" Olivia's face reddened, but she didn't respond. My mother interrupted, her voice trembling. "Aiden, don't be so harsh. Olivia is their mother. She's grown up now. She wants to make things right." "Make things right?" I nearly shouted. "Do you see what I've sacrificed? I lost Lauren, my career, my entire life to raise these kids. And now Olivia shows up and you all expect me to hand them over like the past 9 years meant nothing?" My father slammed the table, his voice like thunder. "Enough! This is what's best for everyone. You won't have to bear the responsibility of raising them anymore. Olivia is their mother and the law will side with her." I looked at him, feeling betrayed. "The law?" I repeated, my voice breaking. "Does the law know how many nights I stayed up, how many times I cried for them?" Mr. Blake cut in, his tone cold. "Mr. Lane, I understand your emotions, but legally the biological mother has priority for custody unless there's evidence she's unfit. Ms. Olivia currently has a stable income and is committed to caring for her children." I looked at Olivia, my eyes skeptical. "Stable income? From what? What have you been doing for 9 years?" Olivia avoided my gaze, saying only, "I have a job. You don't need to know." I turned to my parents, pleading, "Mom, Dad, don't you see? She doesn't deserve them. She'll hurt them." But my mother just cried, "Aiden, she's your sister. You have to give her a chance." My father nodded. "You can't keep them forever. They need their real mother." It felt like the whole world was against me. I wanted to scream, to break everything, but then I heard Joshua's voice from the other room. "Uncle Aiden, I finished my homework." His innocent voice choked me up. I stood up, walked to the boys' room, and saw Matthew and Joshua playing with their building blocks. "Kids," I said, my voice trembling, "someone wants to take you away." Matthew looked up, his eyes wide. "Take us where? Are you coming with us, Uncle Aiden?" Joshua grabbed my hand, his voice panicked. "I want to stay here. I don't want to go anywhere." I knelt down, hugging them both, tears streaming down my face. I want that too, I whispered, but maybe I can't. Back in the living room, I looked at Olivia, my parents, and Mr. Blake. Fine, I said, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. I'll let her take them. But I'm warning you, Olivia. If you hurt them, I'll never forgive you. Olivia nodded, her eyes red, but I didn't trust her tears. Mr. Blake nodded, satisfied. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll arrange the transition in the next few days. The day of the handover came like a nightmare. I packed Matthew and Joshua's clothes, books, and favorite toys. The boys stood at the door, eyes red, clinging to me. Uncle Aiden, why do we have to go? Matthew sobbed, his small hands gripping my shirt. Joshua cried, I don't want to live with her. I want to stay with you. I knelt down, hugging them tightly, tears streaming down my face. Kids, I said, my voice choked, I love you more than anything. No matter where you are, I'll always be here for you. Promise me you'll be good, okay? They nodded, sobbing, hugging me like they never wanted to let go. Olivia stood at the door, her eyes looking away as if she didn't care about the pain the boys and I were feeling. I handed them over to her, each step they took tearing my heart apart. Take good care of them, I said coldly. Olivia nodded but didn't meet my eyes. She took Matthew and Joshua's hands, leading them to the car. I stood at the door, watching their figures grow smaller, their cries fading into the distance. When the car door closed, I collapsed, feeling like my entire world had crumbled. The apartment became eerily silent. Matthew's drawings on the walls, Joshua's book on the table, everything reminded me of my loss. I sat there, hands covering my face, tears streaming down. 9 years of sacrifice, 9 years of love, only to end in a painful goodbye. But deep down, I knew I couldn't give up. If Olivia couldn't care for them, I would find a way to bring them back. Even if I had to fight the whole world, I wouldn't let Matthew and Joshua go. The days that followed were a blur of despair. The apartment felt empty, devoid of the boys' laughter, the patter of their small feet running down the hallway. I went to work, but my mind wasn't there. The numbers on my screen blurred, replaced by images of Matthew and Joshua clinging to me, sobbing as Olivia led them away. Each night I lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, wondering what they were doing, if they were eating enough, sleeping well. I called Olivia, but she didn't pick up. I texted asking about the boys, but received only silence. My heart felt like it was being sliced by a knife, and I couldn't sit still. I decided to act. If Olivia thought she could reappear after 9 years and take the boys without consequences, she was wrong. I contacted Aaron Fox, a well-known private investigator in the area. We met in a small, secluded cafe where the smell of roasted coffee mingled with the damp air of a rainy afternoon. Aaron was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see through everything. "What do you need, Aiden?" he asked, his voice low, scribbling quickly in a notebook. "I need you to follow my sister, Olivia Lane," I said, keeping my voice low so no one could overhear. "She just took back the 2 kids I raised for 9 years. I don't trust her to care for them properly. I need to know they're safe." Aaron nodded, asking few questions. "I'll start right away. Give me a week, I'll have something." I handed him photos of Olivia, Matthew, and Joshua, along with the address she'd mentioned. As I passed him the boy's photo, my hands trembled. "Please," I whispered, "don't let them get hurt." The waiting days felt like centuries. I couldn't sleep, every small noise in the apartment startling me, thinking it was Aaron calling. I tried to picture Matthew and Joshua happy, but a bad feeling clung to me. Finally, on a stormy evening, Aaron called. "Aiden, meet me now. I have something you need to see." I rushed out, heart pounding, heedless of the rain soaking my clothes. We met at a small diner, its neon lights flickering. Aaron slid a folder across the table, his voice grave. "Brace yourself." I opened the folder, my hands shaking. The photos hit me like a punch. Olivia was living in a rundown apartment with broken windows and cluttered furniture. She stood next to a disheveled man with bloodshot eyes, clearly an addict. Another photo showed them arguing, Olivia raising her hand as if to strike, the man yelling back. But what stopped my heart was the image of Matthew and Joshua huddled in a corner, pale and wide-eyed with fear. "Aiden," Aaron said, his voice low. "I've been watching them for days. Olivia's living with this guy, Derek, a heavy addict. They fight constantly and there are signs of abuse. The kids aren't being cared for properly. They eat fast food, sleep on a sofa, and don't have their own rooms. I overheard Olivia yelling that she only wants money from the boy's biological father." I gripped the folder, my blood boiling. "Money? From their father?" I asked, my voice faltering. Aaron nodded. I dug deeper. The boy's father is Jake Miller, the guy who left Olivia when she was pregnant. He's now a successful businessman with a family of his own. Olivia contacted him demanding child support, using the kids as leverage. She doesn't want to be a mother, Aiden. She's using them. I sat there, stunned, as if the world had collapsed again. Olivia hadn't returned out of love for Matthew and Joshua. She came back for money, for a deadbeat father I didn't even know was still in the picture. I looked at the photos, at the boy's terrified eyes, and my heart shattered. "She dares," I muttered, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. "She dares use them like that." Aaron put a hand on my shoulder. "Aiden, stay calm. If you want to get the kids back, you need evidence. What I've got here is enough to take to court, but you'll need a good lawyer." I nodded, my mind reeling. I'd let Olivia take them because I thought she had a right to be their mother, because my parents pressured me, because her lawyer threatened me. But now, knowing the truth, I couldn't sit still. "Thank you, Aaron," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes to bring them back." That night I returned home, sleepless. I sat at the table, staring at Aaron's photos, each image like a knife to my heart. Matthew and Joshua, the boys I'd raised, were now living in fear in a filthy apartment with a mother who saw them as tools for profit. I remembered the nights I stayed up soothing them, the afternoons pushing them on swings, the times they hugged me and called me Uncle Aiden. I'd sacrificed everything for them, and I wouldn't let Olivia ruin their lives. I began researching Jake Miller. Through social media, I found he was the CEO of a real estate company, living in a luxurious house with his wife and 3 children. He looked far different from the reckless young man who'd abandoned Olivia. I didn't know how to reach him, but I knew I needed him. If he was truly their father, he could help me, or at least provide information to get the boys back. I contacted an old friend with connections in the legal field. He referred me to Christopher Blake, the same lawyer who'd represented Olivia. I was surprised, but he explained, "Blake works for whoever pays him. If you have evidence and good money, he'll take your side." I met Blake bringing Aaron's folder. When I laid the photos in front of him, he frowned. "This is strong evidence, Mr. Lane. If true, Olivia is unfit to be a mother. But you'll need more witnesses, and if the biological father cooperates, your chances will be higher." I decided to track down Jake Miller. I sent emails, made calls, but he didn't respond. Finally, I went to his office, a gleaming glass building in the city center. I waited in the lobby, heart pounding, until Jake appeared. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit, but his face paled when he saw me. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice wary. "I'm Aiden Lane," I said firmly. "You're the father of Matthew and Joshua, right? Olivia, your ex-girlfriend, my sister, is using them to extort money from you." Jake led me to his office, closing the door. He sat down, his hands trembling. "I know about this. Olivia contacted me a few months ago demanding child support. I refused because I have a family now. She's threatening to sue me." I looked at him, angry but restraining myself. "Olivia's abusing the kids. She's living with an addict. They can't take care of your boys properly. I need your help to bring them to a safe place." Jake bowed his head, his voice quiet. "I was wrong to abandon my kids. I'll help you, whatever it takes." Jake agreed to be a witness, provide financial support, and back my legal efforts. I felt a glimmer of hope, but I knew the battle ahead wouldn't be easy. Olivia had our parents' support, and they wouldn't give up easily. But looking at the photos of Matthew and Joshua, I told myself, I'll bring them back, no matter the cost. I returned to my apartment, my heart heavy but my resolve burning. Matthew's drawing still hung on the walls. Joshua's adventure book lay open on the table, reminding me why I had to fight. I couldn't sleep that night, sitting at the table with Aaron's folder, reviewing every photo, every report. The images of the boys huddled in a corner, their eyes filled with fear, pierced my heart like a knife. I couldn't let them live like that. Couldn't let Olivia use them as tools for profit. The next morning, I met with Christopher Blake, the lawyer my friend had recommended. His office was in a gleaming glass building, the smell of polished wood and the cold air making me shiver. Blake, a middle-aged man with silver hair and sharp eyes, sat across from me, flipping through Aaron's folder. "This is strong evidence, Mr. Lane," he said, his voice low. "The photos, the report on their living conditions, and the investigator's testimony show Olivia is unfit to be a mother. But you need to understand, this will be a tough battle. Olivia is their biological mother, and she has your parents' support. They won't let you take custody easily." I nodded, my hands clenched. "I know. But I can't let the boys stay with her. She doesn't love them, she's just using them." Blake raised an eyebrow, jotting down notes. "If Jake Miller agrees to testify, your chances will improve. But you'll need more evidence. Medical records for the boys, statements from people who've seen you care for them. Most importantly, you have to prove you're the best person to raise them." I left Blake's office, my mind reeling but filled with determination. I began gathering evidence. I contacted Mrs. Mary, the babysitter, and the boys' teacher, Ms. Sarah. Mrs. Mary agreed to testify, her voice full of emotion. "Aiden, you're the best father I've ever seen. I'll tell the court how you sacrificed everything for those boys." Ms. Sarah also agreed. "The boys are smart, well-behaved, and always talk about Uncle Aiden. I'll help you." I collected medical records, receipts for formula and diapers, and even commendation letters from the boys' school. Each piece of paper was proof of the 9 years I'd devoted to them. I also reached out to Jake Miller again. He agreed to fund legal fees and testify, even promising to leverage his legal contacts to help. "I can't be their father," he said, eyes downcast, "but I want them safe." I nodded, not forgiving him, but knowing his help was necessary. Each night I sat at the table, organizing documents, preparing myself for the battle. I imagined Matthew and Joshua coming back, their laughter filling the apartment again. But I was also afraid. Afraid I'd fail, that the court would favor Olivia because she was their biological mother. I called Miss Sarah, asking about the boys from afar. "They're okay, but not happy," she said. "They miss you, Aiden." Her words fueled my resolve, but also broke my heart. I knew my parents would side with Olivia. Once I called my mother, hoping she'd understand. "Mom, Olivia isn't taking care of them properly," I said, my voice pleading. "I have proof she's living with an addict, signs of abuse." But she only sighed. "Aiden, don't make a big deal out of this. Olivia is their mother. She'll learn to be a mom." I hung up, feeling betrayed again. My parents, who once pressured me to raise the boys, now stood by Olivia, as if my 9 years meant nothing. I met with Blake one last time before the court date. He looked at me, his voice serious. "Aiden, you have to stay calm in court. Olivia and your parents will try to paint you as selfish, unwilling to share custody. Don't let your emotions take over." I nodded, but my heart was heavy with worry. I wasn't just fighting Olivia. I was fighting my entire family. The courtroom was cold, the harsh white light from the ceiling making me shiver. I sat beside Blake, clutching the folder of evidence, my heart pounding. Across from us, Olivia sat with her lawyer, a middle-aged woman with a sharp, cold gaze. My parents sat behind Olivia, their eyes avoiding mine. Matthew and Joshua weren't present. Blake said it was better for them. But I felt their presence in every beat of my heart. Olivia's lawyer spoke first, her voice cutting. "Your Honor, my client, Ms. Olivia Lane, is the biological mother of Matthew and Joshua Lane. She made mistakes in the past, but she is now ready to be a mother. Mr. Aiden Lane, while having cared for the children, has no legal right to keep them. I clenched my fists, feeling my blood boil. Blake put a hand on my shoulder, whispering, "Stay calm." Olivia took the witness stand, her eyes red, her voice plaintive. "I was young when I had the boys. I was scared and ran away. But I regret it, and now I want to make amends. Aiden won't give me a chance to be a mother." I wanted to shout that she was lying, that she only wanted money, but Blake held me back. My parents also testified, my mother's voice trembling. "Aiden is a good brother, but he's selfish. He doesn't want to share the boys with Olivia." My father added, "Olivia is their real mother. She has rights." I looked at them, my heart tearing apart. They'd once forced me to raise the boys, and now they were slandering me to defend Olivia. Blake called me to the stand. I took a deep breath and recounted the 9 years of sacrifice. The sleepless nights, the exhausting days, the dreams I gave up to raise Matthew and Joshua. "I'm not their biological father," I said, my voice choking. "But I love them more than anyone. I can't let them live with a mother who sees them only as tools for profit." The judge looked at me, her expression unreadable. Blake presented the evidence. Aaron's photos, the report on Olivia's squalid living conditions, and testimonies from Mrs. Mary and Ms. Sarah. "Mr. Lane has raised these boys for 9 years, while Ms. Olivia abandoned them," Blake said, his voice firm. "She lives with an addict, with signs of abuse. The boys are not safe with her." Olivia's lawyer objected, but Blake pressed on. "We have a witness, Mr. Jake Miller, the boy's biological father, who confirms that Ms. Olivia is only seeking child support without regard for their well-being." Jake took the stand, his voice low. "I was wrong to abandon my boys, but I know Aiden is the only one who truly loves and cares for them. Olivia just wants to exploit them." The judge questioned Olivia. "Ms. Lane, where were you for 9 years? Why return now?" Olivia stammered, her voice weak. I needed time to grow up." The judge frowned. "And you believe you're fit to raise them, living with someone showing signs of abuse?" The trial dragged on, suffocatingly tense. I looked at Olivia, her head bowed as if she knew she was losing. Blake whispered, "We're in a strong position." But I didn't dare hope. All I could think about was Matthew and Joshua, praying they could come back to me. Every word in the courtroom, every glance from the judge felt like a blade hanging over my head. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, trying to stay calm despite my pounding heart. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, called for final statements from both sides. Olivia's lawyer stood, her voice still trying to sound confident. "Your Honor, my client, Ms. Olivia Lane, is the biological mother of the children. She made mistakes, but she is now ready to make amends. Mr. Aiden Lane, though dedicated, is not a direct relative. Custody should belong to the biological mother." I wanted to scream that Olivia didn't deserve them, but Blake placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes signaling me to stay silent. Then it was Blake's turn. He stood, his voice firm. "Your Honor, Mr. Aiden Lane has raised Matthew and Joshua Lane for 9 years, while Ms. Olivia abandoned them at 4 months old. He sacrificed his career, his love life, and his personal life to provide them a safe home. Meanwhile, Ms. Olivia lives with an addict, with signs of abuse, and only returned to exploit the children for child support from their biological father." Blake presented Aaron's photos, the report on Olivia's squalid living conditions, and testimonies from Mrs. Mary, Ms. Sarah, and Jake Miller. "Mr. Lane is not just their caregiver," Blake concluded, his voice resonant. "He is their true father." The judge looked at me, then at Olivia. She questioned her sternly. "Ms. Lane, how do you explain abandoning your children for 9 years? And the current living conditions you provide?" Olivia stammered, her eyes red. I was young, I was scared, but now I want to be a mother. I'll change." The judge frowned. "Do you have any evidence to prove you're capable of parenting?" Olivia bowed her head, silent. I glanced at my parents sitting behind her. my mother crying, my father avoiding my gaze as if ashamed. After what felt like an endless deliberation, the judge returned. She looked around the room, her voice clear. Based on the evidence and testimonies, the court grants custody of Matthew and Joshua Lane to Mr. Aiden Lane. Ms. Olivia Lane has not demonstrated her fitness as a mother, and the best interests of the children are with the person who has cared for them for 9 years. The gavel struck, resounding like an explosion in my head. I trembled, tears streaming down my face. Blake clapped my shoulder, smiling. "Congratulations, Aiden." Olivia burst into tears and rushed out of the courtroom. My parents stood, my mother looking at me with pained eyes while my father shouted, "Aiden, you've disgraced this family." I stood there, stunned. "Disgraced?" I repeated, my voice bitter. "I just wanted to protect the boys. You chose Olivia's side, not mine." My mother sobbed. "Aiden, you don't understand. We just wanted the family to stay together." I shook my head. "Together? When you forced me to give up everything, then turned your backs when I needed you most?" My father turned away, silent, and they left the courtroom, leaving me feeling like I'd lost my entire family. Jake Miller approached, his eyes full of remorse. "Aiden, you did the right thing. I'll support you long term." He handed me the keys to a small villa in the suburbs, which he'd bought for me and the boys to have a better home. "Consider it my atonement," he said. I nodded, not forgiving him, but knowing this was a chance for Matthew and Joshua to have a fresh start. I left the courtroom, my heart lighter but still heavy. I'd won the boys back, but at the cost of a permanent rift with my parents and Olivia. The day I picked up Matthew and Joshua, I went to Olivia's apartment. The boys ran into my arms, sobbing, "Uncle Aiden, we missed you." I hugged them tightly, tears streaming down my face. "I missed you too," I whispered. Olivia stood at the door, eyes red, but said nothing. I didn't look at her, just led the boys to the car, my heart light with the knowledge they were safe. The new villa Jake bought for us sat in the suburbs with a small garden full of green grass. Matthew and Joshua ran around joyfully, their laughter echoing, filling the void in my heart. I stood on the porch, watching them play, reflecting on the 9 years of hardship. I remembered the sleepless nights, the moments of exhaustion, the times I thought I couldn't go on. But I also remembered Matthew's smile, Joshua's curious eyes, and the way they called me Uncle Aiden with unconditional love. I thought back to the day I first held them when Olivia left, leaving behind a scrawled note. I'd been terrified, thinking I couldn't do it. But I did, and though I lost so much, Lauren, my career, my family, I knew I'd done the right thing. Matthew and Joshua weren't just my nephews, they were my life, the reason I woke up each day. My parents stopped contacting me. Once my mother called, her voice trembling. "Aiden, can you forgive us?" I stayed silent, unsure how to respond. I didn't hate them, but the wound was too deep and I needed time. Olivia vanished completely as she had 9 years before. I didn't know where she was or what she was doing, but I hoped one day she'd find herself, as I had found meaning in raising the boys. One evening I sat with Matthew and Joshua in the garden, the sunset painting the sky golden. "Uncle Aiden," Joshua asked innocently, "we'll stay with you forever, right?" I smiled, ruffling his hair. "Forever, my love." Matthew chimed in, hugging me. "You're the best." I hugged them both, tears falling silently. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with the boys by my side, I was ready to face anything. Family, I realized, isn't about blood. It's about love, sacrifice, and the moments that make your heart sing. I'd lost much, but I had Matthew and Joshua, and that was enough to keep me going. Our story wasn't over, but I knew no matter what the future held, I would never let go.